Yes, there are over 70 different reprints of the base set Charizard, and I've documented them all, and we're gonna go through them one by one. On October 20th, 1996, the Pokemon trading card game was launched in Japan. The first few cards that came out were actually missing the rarity symbol in the bottom right. So to start off this video, we have two Japanese Charizards, the no rarity Charizard and Charizard. So to start off this video, yes, we have one of the, maybe the most historical Pokemon card of all time. And next, I have decided to add the Trade Please promo, or the CD promo Charizard, because yes, this is a reprint of the base set Charizard. Now, the illustration is different. This one is by Ken Sugimori, and you will recognize it from the Game Boy games. I really do love this card. So there were two ways to get this card, either through the Trade Please promo, which was in Japan in 1998, or with the CD. It was in there as an additional promo along with other cards. So sometimes it will be referred to as the Trade Please promo, but most people just call it the CD promo Charizard. All right, so in North America, January 9th, 1999, it happened. The Pokemon trading card game launched in English. And that is our next Charizard. There's a lot to say about this card. Maybe you first saw it on Pawn Stars.
It's like a game like 8-year-old kids play, right?
Maybe shirtless Pogan Lol showed it to you, or maybe you were there on the ground in 1999 opening booster packs. However you know about it, you know about it. But let's take a look at it. You'll notice that it actually looks a lot different than the Japanese version. First of all, we had the hollow foil pattern switched. They had a Cosmos foil pattern on their Charizard, and we have a Starlight foil pattern. A few other things got tweaked. This was basically a revamp. And you'll notice that this Charizard has 4 different variants, and that's because base set had 4 different prints. We have first edition, Shadowless, Unlimited, and the 1999 to 2000 print, or just the 2000 print. There are some obvious differences like the first edition stamp and the shadow, and some less obvious ones like the copyright year or the color of the stripes in the illustration. Okay, so we're already at a handful of Charizards here. We have 3 Japanese and 4 English, but base set was also printed in other languages like Dutch, Spanish, German, French, Italian, Portuguese, Korean, and Chinese, and each of them got a first edition and unlimited print. The Dutch, Italian, Korean, and Chinese were printed with the Cosmos foil pattern, like the original Japanese Charizard, while Spanish, Portuguese, German, and French got the Starlight hollow foil pattern, like we did in North America. But there is one more base set variant actually. It's the test print Charizard. So yeah, I decided to put this on the list, even though it probably doesn't belong on the list, but I think it's really cool and I wanted it on the list. This card was printed sometime after base set Unlimited and was obviously a test that was never intended to leave the factory, but hey, it's a thing. The card's missing a bunch of assets like the Charmeleon in the evolution box, energy symbols, and the text below the illustration window. And in addition to this, the foil pattern is unique. It's what CGC calls a disco foil pattern, which I think is fitting. Okay, next up is the base set 2 Charizard, which looks the same, but it's not. This reprint has a different foil pattern, known as Cosmos. So this is what the Japanese Charizard had before. A base set 2 logo and a copyright of 2000, and its number is 4 of 130 as opposed to 4 of 102. And base set 2 never got a first edition print. It was also never printed outside of English. So that is one more Charizard you can add to the list. Next we have a Jumbo Charizard. So Koro Koro Comic Magazine, you may have heard of them. They started out in 1977 and it's a monthly manga magazine. they often run promotions for different toys and games, and that includes Pokemon cards. You might recognize this one. But in early 2000, they released a jumbo Charizard reprint. So here you go. It's obviously a lot bigger than a regular card. The borders on the top and the bottom are like super fat to accommodate some extra text like the Koro Koro comic logo. And then it has its own special set symbol too. And interestingly, even though this was in a Japanese magazine exclusive in Japan, it's in English. It's a reprint of the English base set Charizard. Moving on, we have the Legendary Collection. This time the foil pattern jumps back to the Starlight holo foil pattern. The set logo changes. We get a copyright of 2002 and a number of 3 of 110. So just like base set 2, there is no Japanese version of this. There's no any other version of this. It was printed in just English, and it was never printed in first edition. So that is 4 more Legendary Collection Charizards. Why? Well, we have the regular holofoil, and then we have a reverse of that. And this was the first set ever to introduce reverse foils, like in an expansion pack. And it is the best goddamn reverse foil we ever got. So that's 2. We have the holo and the reverse foil. Now, there was also a non-holo version of this Charizard, and that came with the lava theme deck. So the first 2 you could actually pull out of booster packs. The non-holo, you had to buy the pre-constructed theme deck. And then there is one more. It is another reverse foil Charizard, but it's not the same foil pattern. And this is a box topper. And if you don't know what a box topper is, it's not as big as a jumbo Pokemon card, but it's bigger than a regular Pokemon card. So it's kind of in between. And you would get these by buying a booster box. It was included as a free promo. Now they don't do these anymore. They didn't do them for very long, but they are super cool. And it is a base set Charizard reprint. Then we took a long 6-year break from the base set Fire Lizard. Gen 2, Gen 3 passed by, and it wasn't until the final expansion from Gen 4. The Diamond and Pearl era, where we got to see the cash cow once again. These cards are reprints, but they got modernized. The Charizard is in the same pose and everything, and yes, the artwork is still by Mitsuhiro Arita, but there is no reverse foil because this was a secret rare. And for the Japanese version, we have a first edition and unlimited. For English, we only have unlimited, so that's 3 more Charizards. And yes, this Charizard was printed in other languages. You can find it in German, French, Italian, and Spanish. Okay, XY Evolutions was a huge success. It released just in time for the huge Pokemon Go hype. But Evolutions was actually created not to piggyback off of the Pokemon Go hype, but to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, which is obviously a really big deal. And for the Japanese print, it did not have an unlimited run. So these are only first edition cards in Japanese. And so to celebrate 20 years of Pokemon, again, we basically got an updated version of this Charizard, along with a bunch of other updated cards, by the way. This was basically a base set reprint, and it was super, super cool. It still is super cool. And if you look at the English Charizard, it resembles the original Japanese Charizard, which was super trippy at first, but now I think it's really cool. And here's a little detail that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. This is when they made a switch with the base set Charizard card. The holofoil pattern used to go right over Charizard's fire, so the fire was actually translucent. But now with the evolution sets, they put the holofoil behind it, or in other words, the fire now has an opaque white layer of ink. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so there's 2 different variants to this Charizard. There is the holo and the reverse holo, but there's also a pre-release stamped version of the holo, and then there is a staff stamped version of that pre-release stamped version. So let's go over that in a little more detail. We have the regular holo Charizard, we have the reverse holo, and then we have something called a pre-release. And to get that, you would have to attend a pre-release event, which are typically held at local card shops. But this pre-release stamped Charizard has another variant. You can get one that has the word staff stamped on it, opposite of the evolution stamp. So it has both evolutions and staff stamped onto it. And as you have already guessed, this is for the staff members of those pre-release events or sometimes other events. So we have 4 different variants of the evolutions Charizard. The English one anyway. The Japanese only has the one variant. But this is where things get fun. These 4 different variants carry into the international releases. So you can find all of these in French, German, Italian, and Spanish. Now there is a Korean version, but it doesn't have the variants, just the one card. So for the 25th anniversary of Pokemon, we got another Charizard reprint. And looking at this Charizard, this is actually, in my opinion, this is one of my favorite Charizard base set reprints. It's just amazing, from the holofoil pattern to the holofoil border and the 25th anniversary stamp. It all just ties in so nicely. And this is Japanese, which means it is of the utmost quality, and it really just is a very, very appealing card. This is the English version with a big fat Pikachu stamp on it and solid yellow borders. So with this celebration set, this was the first time we got a base set Charizard with texture. The top layer of the card, the finishing layer, it has a texture pressed into it. As you can see here, it looks really, really nice on this Charizard. So there is one Japanese version and one English version, and one Chinese, Thai, Indonesian, Italian, Spanish, French, German, and Portuguese and Korean version. But the Korean one is actually really unique because it has the 25th stamp like the Japanese one, but it has the solid yellow borders like the English one. So the Korean 25th Celebrations Charizard reprint is actually very unique. Now before we move on, we also got a gold medal Charizard. This came with the Celebrations Ultra Premium Collection, which was printed in very short supply. Now it's worth noting that this metal Charizard doesn't have a 25th or a Pikachu stamp on it. It's actually a replica of the original English base set Charizard. The only difference here is that the copyright has been changed to reflect, you know, the whole Wizards not having any license anymore. Oh, and it's made of gold. Well, it's not really made of gold. It looks like it's made of gold, I guess. In December 2021, members of Creatures got an incredible gift. It was a special 30 card deck, and each card represented 1 year of Creatures from 1995 all the way to 2021. And one of these was Charizard. So this card is in Japanese. It has the 25th anniversary stamp on it, and it's also printed on a glossy cardstock. And the reverse of this card is unique. It doesn't have the typical back of a Pokemon card, but instead it's like this small write-up of the creation of the Pokemon trading card game. And there's one little detail on this card that I really like, and it says that the Pokemon trading cards were actually in development before the games ever came out, and I think that's really awesome. And the next base set Charizard reprint would be in the Pokemon trading card game Classic. Now this is one of the most confusing and certainly the most expensive products that we've ever gotten from the Pokemon Company. Now this is another reprint that looks very, very similar to the original 1999 copy, but it has a few differences. First, you'll notice that the holofoil pattern is very unique. If you zoom in, you'll notice that it has little stars in it. And of course, the border is also holofoil, which just looks incredible. Now, what I like about this is that the English reprint looks like the original English Charizard, and the Japanese reprint looks like the original Japanese Charizard. I guess just like Celebrations, but it's just a little detail that I really appreciate. So the English version does not have the holofoil borders, they get the solid yellow borders. But I find that the holofoil behind Charizard really feels a lot more subtle this way. So If that's your thing, then that's pretty cool. Another thing you'll notice on these cards is that in the bottom left there is a big fat red CLC to indicate that this is from the Pokemon Trading Card Game Classic, and a unique card number of 003 out of 034. And then we also get some additional text that reads, "This card cannot be used at official tournaments." And of course, a 2023 copyright at the absolute bottom of this card. This card was also printed in Chinese and Korean. And the Chinese version has the holofoil borders like the Japanese one. The Korean version has the solid yellow borders like the English one. So by my count, that is 76 base set Charizard reprints. Did I miss some? Maybe. I can only speak English, so it was really hard to confirm some of the international releases, but I think I got them all.